Hey, do you have an idea for a podcast but don't know where to start? Or do you have an already existing podcast that you want to take to the next level? Well, check out WeKnowPodcasting.com. From concept development to theme music to editing to logos, WeKnowPodcasting.com is a one-stop shop for all things pod. Don't hesitate to hit us up. We're very nice.
And welcome to another episode of the Horror Movie Night podcast. This week, we're talking about a movie that I picked that, depending on what you saw, if you went to the theaters, I believe it was called Meet the Applegates. If you picked up the VHS tape afterwards, it was just called The Applegates. So we're going to go with Meet the Applegates because it's a more
Matt,
absurd
what was it
title.
called if we all watched it on YouTube? It was called Meet the Applegates. This was legitimately the quietest video YouTube has in the 10 million videos on YouTube. I actually had to crank the volume and turn on the subtitles.
Oh, the subtitles were a lot of fun.
Those
auto-generated subtitles were out of control.
I mean, I'm just impressed with robots being able to catch a lot of that.
So I watched this on the VHS PS copy that I had purchased many, many years ago. I had wanted to see this movie since like 1996. Mm-hmm. And I've talked about this before on the show, but this probably will be the last time I share this story. But when MTV was promoting Joe's Apartment, they did a weird 30-minute like special that was the cockroaches of Joe's Apartment doing a countdown of the greatest bug appearances in cinema history.
Holy shit.
And they covered Meet the Applegates, and I was like, what the fuck is that? So like that was burned into my brain from that point. But this movie was fucking hard to find because it was made in like 1988, 1989. And then New World was like kind of on the out. So this sat on a shelf for a couple years. I definitely want to, before we dive in, I want to talk about Michael Lehman. I believe that's how it's pronounced, or Lehman, the man who wrote and directed this movie, because his career is fucking wild. So this was his follow-up to his directorial debut, a little film called Heathers.
What? Wow.
Yeah. And there's a lot of Heathers energy in this.
Big Heathers energy.
Yeah. But then this movie gets released the exact same year as another one of his movies, Hudson Hawk. So
that is such a 1-2 punch for. Oh, no wonder.
Dude, just wait for it, Scott.
Then he follows it up with Airheads. Just like moving up the ranks of like movies I love.
No, so here's the thing. Hudson Hawk was panned so bad by critics. Like, I've never watched it. I mean, I would watch it.
Oh, yeah, no. It's a big step. He's not doing so great, right? Airheads, I don't know. I don't know if Airheads was a hit or not.
It's a hit for me. I fucking love that movie.
I mean, I love that movie, but he follows it up with The Truth About Cats and Dogs, which I vaguely remember as like a Janine Garofalo rom-com. Then his career gets real weird. He does My Giant with Billy Crystal. He follows that he directs a couple episodes of The West Wing before he does 40 Days and 40 Nights with Josh Hartnett.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Then out of fucking nowhere, 7 years go by, he's just doing TV, and then he's like, I think it's time for me to do another movie. And he does Because I Said So, the rom-com starring Diane Keaton and Mandy Moore, and then it's pretty much been television ever since. Like,
so he should have just stayed with television.
Yeah, his career has been so all over the place, and it's like at worst he made movies that people hated. At best, he made films that bombed at the box office and then found its audience on home video.
Yeah. Did Heathers bomb?
Heathers is probably Heathers or Airheads, I think, are probably his two most successful movies, and both of them, I think, would ultimately fall into like the modest hit category.
Yeah.
Like, I think that they're both two. I'm going to double check, but I feel like they're probably one of those movies where you look at like how much did this cost and how much did it make, and it was like it technically made money, but like not by that much. Like, I don't think it was like a runaway. You know, when you look at some of those films where it's like, this movie was made for $5,000 and it brought in $10 million in its box office run. Nope, Heathers was a bomb. Budget was $3 million. It made $1 million in the box office.
Wow, that's so much worse than I was expecting.
That was not,
You thought that was bad. Airheads cost $11 million to make and brought in $5 million.
But here's the thing: is if we're talking about orders of magnitude or multiplication, you know, Airheads only cost twice as much, roughly, than what it made.
That's
whereas
true,
Heathers was 3 times as much as it made. But I understand also it's a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, either way, it was like just never. But I think that most of his movies, especially I don't think he wrote all of his films, but I know he wrote Heathers. I know he wrote this, and I'm pretty sure he at least co-wrote Airheads. And what I like about this movie is something that I similarly like about both Airheads and Heathers, which is that it is clear that he has some real problems with American suburbia, and he's gonna fucking vent about it.
Dude, very clearly. And it just I mean, out the gate, the premise for this, which I know you'll get into, is bonkers, but like the spirals that happen after you just accept like what's happening
you really have to
crazy.
Just sit and let this movie wash over you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I think that from the first scene, you kind of know where it's going to go, but the way they get there is just so odd.
It's really odd.
There are weirdly smart things scattered amongst this movie. Like, it is a goofy, dumb movie, but there's little things. So the movie's about a group of giant praying mantises, and it says that these bugs are really big, and they've got attitude in the opening credits crawl. Setting up this movie.
Like it's not a really good way to set it up that they are dressed like a 50s nuclear family.
No, they don't answer certain aspects of their characters. And there's not attitude is not what I thought any of that was.
But what I love in this, so yes, there's a group of, I guess you'd call them missionaries, that are there to basically distract some local tribes in Brazil while the forest is being destroyed, and try to quote unquote make them American or whatever.
But hey, I gotta give them props. The quote unquote natives were far less offensive in this than they were in Pterodactyl Woman from Beverly Hills.
Yes, 100%.
I'm sorry, I just realized what the fuck you said.
Very similar movie. Good double feature with this one in a weird way.
Let's not call that a good double feature.
The bugs come out of the forest and just start attacking everybody. And as the missionaries run away, they drop this book that's basically like, this is what an American family looks like. And it's these like drawings of Dick and Sally and Johnny. And so they're like, oh, we're going to take those names. Like, those are going to be our names. These are going to be our personas. What I think is brilliant is that there is a scene later on in the movie where the character of Dick, who's being played by Ed Begley Jr., is having an affair with his secretary, and it cuts to a shot of the photos behind his desk, and it's literally just the pictures from the book framed behind him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I love
it's in the bedroom at home too, because I think they have on the wall book ending the mirror. There's weird details that are so smart. This is definitely a movie that Kid Kyle would have rented if he had known that it was a thing.
And basically their plan, again, like, this movie really has it out for society as a whole in the nuclear family, and really
literally
stress on the word nuclear.
Yeah, nice.
So the plan is that the bugs are fed up with how we treat nature, and that they're like, look, we can survive a nuclear holocaust, y'all can't. So they're going to get a job at a nuclear power plant and cause the nuclear holocaust to happen so that bugs can be safe.
You know what I love? I love the fact that we are 10 minutes into this recording and we have all said nuclear correctly. Let's keep that ball rolling.
So then they keep breaking their guise. And every time that they do, they cocoon the people who've witnessed them. And it becomes one of the funniest reoccurring bits where it's just like, the slightest thing happens, and then it's just immediate jump cut to a new cocoon being added somewhere in the house. But none of them know that the other ones are cocooning people. So it's like this crazy situation where you've got 4 different people kind of killing, but not killing.
No, they're not killing anybody. Those people all live.
Yeah, they're trying to cover up their own mistakes as bugs attempting to be human.
The first guy that got cocooned, Sally's
Vance should have been killed.
Yeah, he's a teen rapist, and I was expecting that he was getting murdered when I was watching this, because this was my first watch. I was like, "That's what you get, you fucking teen rapist." But then I was like, "Oh, I guess he's just in suspended animation."
But I do like the transformations. I love like her eyeballs exploding out of her face and like
it looks painful, and I like that. But I gotta say that I think that my favorite line or not necessarily a line, but my favorite little interaction is there are two of them, and they happen pretty much very close to each other, maybe within 15 minutes. And John, it's where the dad is quizzing. They're doing drills of their personal information, so that if people ask them questions, they will quote unquote fit in. And they're like basically just speaking 3 times as fast as normal humans. And Johnny goes, "Johnny, hobbies, gold, science, basketball, or baseball." And the dad goes, "Heavy metal." And he's like, "Oh yeah, heavy metal." I love that even though this movie is so very lightly, even tangentially related to horror. I mean, it's giant bugs, I guess, but it's not really a horror movie because no one dies. That heavy metal, that little gold vein just has to stick out right there. It's great. And then Johnny transforms in front of the metalheads who look more like new wavers, which is really funny to me.
Did you recognize Johnny, the actor who played Johnny? Because when I looked at his IMDb credits,
by the way, he's so good.
Blew my mind how many movies
I
we've talked
recognized
about
his
with him
face, but I didn't look at his IMDb.
So he was in 3 movies that we have absolutely watched on this show in some way, shape, or form. All right. So first, he played Melvin in Tremors, the douchey kid in Tremors. Then he played Perry in Night of the Demons Part 2. This is the biggest one, Scott. His credit is just Homeboy number 2. But what that actually means is he's one of Kenny's friends in Can't Hardly Wait.
Yes! Yes! Amazing.
I'm pretty sure he's the one that says, like, I don't see any hoes around here.
Oh, yeah.
This cast, honestly.
Stockard Channing.
Oh my God.
Her in here. We've got fucking Ofo straight off of Beetlejuice.
Like, she just does a Rizzo impression at some point where she's wearing a blonde wig in a bed. She looks exactly like Rizzo. Pretending to be Sandy in Greece. It's like,
and when
perfect.
she's unboxing her Cuisinart, I was just like, this is just mwah.
I've got to give a shout out though to the person who I think is given 110% in this movie when they absolutely didn't need to, but Dabney Coleman as Aunt B, nonstop military talk. Like, this is a movie that dude could have just straight up been like, all right, I'm in a dress, whatever. And he like is so like, I love the idea that it's like they only had this book to determine what they look like.
Yes.
So like
they can do everything else so well, but like they cannot decipher that they need to not look like that.
And I love that Aunt B has this one line on the phone with the dad, and he goes, "If you screw up, I will personally suck the juice from your exocranium. Comprende?" This movie, the pacing really sucks. Like it was a long movie. It wasn't really a long movie, but it felt like a long movie.
Yeah.
But there were just great lines sprinkled through it. And it's kind of a head scratcher for me, because how does that happen where a movie has such bad pacing but so many fun lines?
Yeah, it seems like the script and the story are all there, but then just like not translated to the film itself well. Like, it's just
maybe
not,
the editing is the problem.
Yeah, and it easily could be. They probably, I don't know, because I totally agree with you. There's moments where, and I was watching this in a hotel room in Waco, Texas, at like midnight, completely alone, because Carly was visiting a friend and my son was asleep in the crib that we got from the hotel. And I'm just sitting on this bed. It's so quiet. The movie was so quiet, and that played into me
you're like just an inch away. Like,
I forgot headphones, so I'm just like, so I'm holding it up and trying to like catch what's going on on the laptop. And there was moments where I just put it down and just was just like, okay, I'm done until something happens, I guess. Like until something else happens, until another person's cocooned, or until the secretary has sex with Ed Begley Jr. wearing her shoulder pads and her bra, which was probably my favorite bit in the whole thing. So I'm sorry, because
the beer.
Who Let the Boomers Out?
That might be
Orange
the
Cat.
best companion to a discussion that we've had so far.
So I think that this movie even does jokes that you absolutely like have seen done before and after it, but I like the way that they do the joke in this particular movie type situation. And what's jumping to my mind is specifically Otho, who plays an exterminator, and he's showing off his like silent bug disarmer, where he's like, we won't hear a thing, but if God forbid any bug in this area, they're going to feel it. And it's like he's having a normal conversation, you hear nothing, and then it just cuts to the two of them, and they're just staring straight ahead, trying to look normal while you're just hearing like in the background.
It's such a good gag. It's such a good gag. It's so funny because then it cuts immediately to the car where they're all just sort of like homegirl's disheveled. The daughter, is completely overstimulated, complete shock. But they're like, "This is what we need to do now." I guess this is like we're in this, which totally sets up the whole movie. Like it totally sets up them just not being able to keep their composure at all.
Yeah, they're not prepared for anything that they're planning to do.
And then like even on like a smaller level, like Johnny's walking home because his sister ditched him, and a car drives by, and instead of like one or two cans, like a full 30 like rack of empty cans gets thrown at him. Like it's not even like gags about like suburbia anymore. It's just like the physical gag is so over the top for no reason, but then Johnny doesn't know any better. Like Johnny doesn't know that that's completely far-fetched.
I like how that's the most far-fetched part of the movie for you, not the giant bugs that can shapeshift.
Well, we already bought into the giant bug. We were told in the beginning that they were big and had attitude. So
the shoulder pads is the big one for me. I'm still completely hung up on that. Or that he got drugs from Akron, Ohio. Scott.
Also, Sally, when she's getting interviewed after she's knocked up, but she is like, "Oh, he got some beer from Akron." I'm like, first of all, I did research a little bit of research to try and find out what town this is supposed to be in Ohio. It doesn't say, but I'm assuming I'm gonna give a shout out to Cuyahoga Falls, which is the joke is that it's called Caucasian Falls because it's literally the whitest place in the neighborhoods outside of downtown Akron.
Are there any dry towns or dry neighborhoods in that area?
I mean,
or was it just like no? Yeah.
I mean, it's not like Utah. This isn't SLC Punk.
Well, dude, the upstate New York has a bunch too. I just figured they're close in proximity, and Ohio's fucked up. So I don't know.
I mean, Ohio. I would much rather live in upstate New York because you can get to more cool shit. You can get to Sleepy Hollow.
Oh, here's the connection. Kevin Yeager did the FX here, and he did all the effects on Sleepy Hollow.
Are you fucking me?
Yeah, no, he did all the effects on Meet the Applegates.
Wow. Incredible.
Yeah, that's why those mantises look so fucking good.
Yeah, that's why when you were talking about the rape scene, the insect rape scene, as weird and dark as it is, like there's some amazing effects that happen there. The eyes bulging out and just like this whole thing. But yeah, he did all the effects on this.
Speaking of all that reminds me, we were talking about the budgets of all of his other movies. Strap in, because Meet the Applegates cost $5 million to make. I want to hear some predictions on how much this bad boy made.
I saw it, so I'm not going to predict. Scott saw you.
50,000.
Okay,
it's a little bit better than that. $485,000 out of its $5 million budget.
Okay. So math, I'm not a mathematician. Just, I was aiming for 500,000, not 50,000. So I missed the 10 there. So I actually would have been real close if I had been paying better attention.
But I feel like at the same time, what?
So it was a movie that was shelved for 2 years.
I was going to say, I don't think anyone's blaming him at that point. If it's like this movie's been held up because the company that made it is physically falling apart, and then they just like kind of toss it out at the 0 hour. It premiered in the Philippines, then in France, then in Australia, and then it made it to the United States almost a year after.
No coasts. Just the Midwest.
Well, I saw it was filmed in Wisconsin too, which just makes a lot of sense.
Why the fuck didn't they make the jokes about Wisconsin then? It's way more backwards there.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. They easily should have.
And then awful. That's Wisconsin as a state.
Yo, you ever been to Madison's Mustard Museum? Highly recommend.
No, I've been to Madison, but I've never been to the Mustard Museum, and I love mustard.
I'm gonna send you a picture of my mustard poster from the Mustard Museum. It's hanging in our guest room right now. You can see it from here.
Just taking a quick look, this was definitely the tail end of New World. They went from releasing what looked like, because it's Roger Corman, it looked like about 20 films a year to 5 films to end their run in 1991. And it was The Killer Tomatoes Eat France, Warlock, Meet the Applegates, Die Watching, and 1991's Punisher movie starring Dolph Lundgren. So it was
when Warlock is the highlight of your year, because Warlock is one of those movies that I always have wanted to love, but it's painful. I mean, we're going to discuss one of the two. I don't know when, and I don't know which, but it's just probably the sequel, actually, because Warlock is a very dry, very sad disappointment of a film.
Warlock is a movie that I confuse for Wishmaster on more than one occasion.
All the time. Yeah. All the time. I'm pretty sure like all I can see is the Wishmaster like poster with Warlock in my like I don't know what it looks like. Or Willow. But that's just a
all
W
three of
issue
those
for me.
are on Matt's DVD shelves, like right
side by side.
Because that shit's alphabetical.
No, well, so the joke, my favorite joke, and I've made it a million times, but it's still true, is that I love that I alphabetize my DVDs because now Carnosaur 3 Prime Species is right next to Casablanca where it belongs.
Right where it belongs, baby. Right where it belongs.
I used to have a high level of respect for Kyle's understanding of cinema, and now it has just gone stratosphere. Like, amazing.
The only other scene that I had written down that I really wanted to bring up, and again, it's coming back to fucking Otho, man. His character as this insane, takes way too much pride in his work exterminator, hits like its fever pitch when he finds what used to be their dog, now in a bug form. And then later on, it cuts to him inside the house, and he's mounted the bug on the wall like a deer head.
Yes.
Like, dude, that's when he starts to grow suspicious of them. But it's still not that he thinks that they're bugs, because why would he think that? It's just that this family must have snuck these bugs in from Baltimore.
Right. They're still completely human. They're not weird.
And could have had a great Hairspray reference there, and they didn't do it.
To be fair, they were filming this movie before Hairspray came out. It just took them 3 years to put it out.
Man, chronology is not my... Chronology and math are just really failing me today.
New World Pictures isn't helping you out either by doing this, by completely failing.
He has that great line where Ed Begley Jr. is yelling out the window for help, and he goes... It's Sunday, Dick. We dedicate our day to the Lord today.
Which is just such a John Waters phrase, like right there. That's straight.
This is a very, like, if you had told me that this was like low key written by John Waters, I'd be like, that checks out.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about the pacing again, because you're so right. Like, we're talking about so many one-liners and gags and things that are so funny, but I don't know if it's just because like I don't know if there's too many of them and that like they're ranked. Like, and I don't mean they're all like hits. They're just like, but that's like the structure of the script, is that like it's either like minor reference or pun or like major joke, and maybe it's just like those minor ones are filler, and I don't know, because it's like I laughed a lot more than I expected to watching this, but I was still bored at multiple points.
Most of the time, yeah. It's such a weird movie.
But I recommended it to like 2 people already.
Kyle will recommend it to anybody because
I
Kyle
will. I love everything. I love trash.
Yeah.
I'm a praying mantis from Brazil. I will get the food from the dumpster like Stockard Channing.
That was such their dinner scene was hilarious. Just so choice. So Matt, double feature, buddy.
I'm gonna use a pass only because I'm torn between 2 movies, and I want to see if either one of you takes it first.
It's a mistake, buddy.
Naked Lunch.
Oh, bug typewriter, yeah.
It's really only because of the bugs.
Yeah,
it's not even really what I feel like my double feature would be, but I didn't. I'm sort of going on spur of the moment and just feeling what I feel, and Naked Lunch will really fuck your day up.
Yeah, I watched that when I was in high school, and high school Scott. I don't even know if 39-year-old Scott would be ready for that. I was a wreck. It was very disturbing.
It was very disturbing. I don't know. I really don't. That's not even really my double feature. But I don't have.
Well, we can all do a second
one.
round if you want.
No. I think I'm.
No rules.
No. I think I've made my bed. Naked Lunch. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna go with Fly 2, but then in our discussion, I'm just gonna go with Serial Mom because it's just it's a much better double feature. It would be painful for me to watch. I would much rather be watching Fly 2, even though Fly 2 is a terrible film, but it's got a lot of cool special effects. So I'm going to take one for the team, and I'm going to go Serial Mom.
So I was torn between Serial Mom or Parents, and I'm going to go with Parents. Just another, like, 50s perfect family, but maybe not so perfect underneath the surface.
You really shouldn't have gone with that because that's a worse movie than Serial Mom by a long shot.
Yeah.
You should have just gone with Blast from the Past. If you're going with,
Blast from the Past. I had a weird so Joe's Apartment would probably have been my other one, but I'm more interested in the countdown that Matt talked about at the top of this.
I wish I could find that. I wish I could find that shit because I know that's last time I spoke about that countdown was because that was how I saw the cockroach kill from Nightmare on Elm Street. Part 4 was in that countdown.
Oh
so,
my God.
Best Freddy kill of all time.
Yeah.
What an amazing compilation.
So now we can jump into the next segment. I can't remember what it is. Scott, remind me, what am I supposed to talk about next?
We're supposed to talk about what we watched. So what did you watch this week?
So I've got a couple things that I want to mention, but I'll keep them. I got a movie, a TV show, and a podcast. I'll start with the podcast. I was recently the guest on a podcast called The Center Cut, where they had me send them a list of movies that I love that I think they may not have seen that would be a good discussion for them, right? So I sent them a list of it was mostly like horror movie night greatest hits in there. But then I was like, here's a list of movies that I'm pretty confident you've seen, but on the off chance that you haven't, there'll be great discussions. And I sent them a couple more movies. And shockingly, neither of them had ever seen Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
What?
So the way that this show works is that they watch the first 15 minutes and the last 15 minutes of the movie. And then I quiz them on things that happen in the middle of the movie to see who can properly guess through the context clues what the middle of the movie is. Yeah. So it was really fun.
That sounds like a blast.
Go check it out. I loved it. I was like, this is awesome. These guys are great. So that's my quick plug for them. Go check out the Center Cut podcast. Real quick, because I'm not done watching the show, but I like it enough that I'll sign off on it. Have either of you watched the BBC show Ghosts that's on HBO Max?
Nope.
No.
So it's about this married couple who inherit an old Victorian house.
The new show?
It's from 3 years ago. There's an American version of it now as well. But I've only watched the BBC version so far. They move into the house, and the house is infested with ghosts of pretty much anybody who's ever died on that land's property over the 3,000 plus years that it's been in existence.
Are they in period costumes?
So there's period costumes. There's people who died in the 80s. There's a couple cavemen. There's a couple people that died from the plague.
I'm watching that.
The husband and wife are planning to turn the house into a hotel, and the ghosts are like, well, we can't have that. So they try to murder the wife, and all they do is, in a classic Frighteners situation, they give her a near-death experience so she's able to see and communicate with the ghosts.
Oh, there's a current one that's on TBS? That's a comedy?
Yeah, it's a comedy. It's goofy. It's fun. I had a good time with it.
Is one that you're watching a comedy?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, it's a stressful comedy at times, but other times it's a very entertaining, funny comedy.
Yeah.
And then movie that I watched recently, just because I'm finally trying to take some time to watch things that aren't for podcasts. I checked out Tick Tick Boom on Netflix, and holy shit, that is fucking amazing. I've been humming the songs all day. It's a musical adaptation of an off-Broadway musical. It's Lin-Manuel Miranda's directing debut, and it's starring Andrew Garfield, and it's about the guy. It's about the guy who wrote Rent because he died before Rent ever hit the stage. He had written a musical before that called Tick Tick Boom that was a semi-autobiographical story of a dude in New York in the 90s at the peak of the AIDS epidemic. It's funny at times, it's heartbreaking at times, but the music, it's if you're a fan of Ben Folds, that's the only person I could compare the music to. It's very piano driven, rock music that's so fun and snarky. So Andrew Garfield's in there, Vanessa Hudgens is in there, MJ Rodriguez is in there. It's got a really good cast, and it was one of those ones where I was like, I'm gonna just put this on in the background while I do stuff, and then within like 20 minutes I was like, put the laptop away, put the phone in the corner, and just kind of sit there and be like, I'm fully immersed. I'm enjoying this. Yeah. So if you like musicals, Tick, Tick, Boom, huge. It's got a lot of Oscar buzz, so I think it'll start to get even more of a bump whenever those nominees come out. If it gets nominated for some stuff, then it's like, people are like, oh, that's on Netflix, I'll watch it.
Oh, yeah, that's how it goes.
Watch it before the people who don't care for movies like that, but for whatever reason care what gets nominated for an Oscar, start giving you your hot takes about how it's garbage.
There's a very specific window in which you need to watch this.
Yeah.
And it's closing fast.
This was called Tick, Tick, Boom. I expected something to fucking explode somewhere in this movie.
Y'all ever see Time Cop?
I've seen the cover.
Yeah, we watched Time Cop recently.
On Tubi?
Likely. I actually don't remember. I enjoyed it. I have not seen a lot of Jean-Claude Van Damme films anyway. I've seen Kickboxer. No, Bloodsport, excuse me. It's Bloodsport.
Oh my God.
Basically the same movie.
If the Podfather hears you call it Kickboxer, question mark?
Yeah. No, I was I had to think about that one for a second.
Hey, I mean, if you feel any better, I fell asleep to Universal Soldier 2 last night.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, dude, American Cyborg Steel Warrior is your next one. If you're gonna watch
is that
things
on
in that vein.
Netflix? Because
I watched it on VHS. I don't know where you're gonna find that.
You're not talking about Cyborg from 1985, which we absolutely did for a Patreon.
No. This one's literally called American Cyborg Steel Warrior. Anyway, Time Cop was it's kind of a lot of fun. I mean, I watched it while also paying attention to my son who woke up from a nap in the middle of it. And so there was some parts that I missed that make me feel
action.
like
Who cares?
Yeah, well, but there's time involved. it's a little convoluted. We all
Looper, all right.
Yeah, my buddy Jeanette, Carly, and I all kept looking at each other, and then sometimes to my son Hunter, when he would be like fussing, we'd be like, "It's Time Cop. It's like Time Cop. It's not hard to comprehend." But it was. It was hard to comprehend.
The dumber that those action movies are, the more excited I am to sit down and watch them, though, because it's
like fun.
I've never seen Sudden Death, but I've heard it pitched as Die Hard at a hockey game, and I'm like, that is...
Yeah, it's like, why would you say no to that?
Yeah.
Time Cop? Like, you're chasing people through time? There's, like, a politician involved? Like, briefly, he goes back to the 1920s, and this dude who was from the future is capitalizing on the Great Depression? Maybe? I don't, like... And, like, people are, like... people in his office keep killing themselves by jumping out the window, and he's like, yeah, more money for me, I guess. And it's like Jean-Claude Van Damme comes in with like what looks like one of those Nerf guns that it was not a Nerf gun, but it was a toy gun that used to shoot.
Oh, pop the little balls out.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, right. That's for all the Patreon viewers. You can see my action. It's a fun watch. It's not like it wasn't convoluted in a way that like I was describing, but I did miss little chunks of it, so I had to kind of play quick catch up. But that was fun. And then I'm sure everybody watched the Harry Potter reunion that happened on HBO Max. Should you have HBO Max?
I have HBO Max, and I did not watch it.
For you? No,
I'm not a Harry Potter guy.
Yeah, well, it's.
I know that JK was her invitation was lost in the mail from the from everybody involved.
Just a separate, like a small thing. Any footage of JK Rowling was from a studio tour in London video, which made me laugh every time she came on screen with the little like blurb. It was like 2019 like studio tour London, and I'm like, that's fucked up. I mean, she's fucked up, but it's even more funny that like that's what they were like. What's the most recent thing that we have of her of the studio tour? Like that's ridiculous. Don't fucking include her. Like
the way don't put her in there at all.
I'm sorry. I'm going to go off 1 minute tangent. The way, like the reason that they used that was because they like Warner Brothers was like, yeah, but 5-10 years down the road, she might not be like as people might not be as upset. So we have to use something that's like close to like now. And it's just like, you guys are fucking playing like a political game of some real bullshit for a terrible person who said some terrible shit. So like, don't include that. It's foolish. It's like clown shit. Anyway, it's fun because like if you do like behind the scenes featurettes, it does feel like a really major retrospective with some cool behind the scenes stuff. There are moments where it talks about the psychology of like being a child actor and being as big as they were, and like really like looking back upon that and how it affected those children who were basically almost in a fucking psychological experiment, like growing up.
It's incredible that those 3 child actors all turned out fine.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people from that series were, and it is sort of this weird, everybody grew up together, and they talk about that. And there's really interesting aspects both within the filmmaking aspect of that whole series, and then the rise and the fame and the relationships and all that. It's cool. It does feel like, it feels like some of those like Never Sleep Again, or like more, it's better than that, but it does feel like it's in depth,
Yeah, nice.
It feels, So anyway, that's what I watched.
So real quick, I mentioned it in our Patreon episode for our January Patreon pick, Masters of the Universe Season 2. Super fun, really, really, really entertaining. It has no right to be as fun as it is. But then I cannot believe that Matt didn't mention the new season of Queer Eye and how it made me bawl like a fucking child.
When did the new season come out?
New Year's Day.
New Year's Eve.
No
New Year's
shit.
Day, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. I gotta get into that.
That second episode is a masterpiece.
The prom one? Didn't even finish it.
No, that's not the second episode.
Which one is that?
The second episode is the trans power lifter.
Oh, that one is fantastic.
That
the
one's
prom
incredible.
one we didn't even finish it. But it was the woman who had animal rescue and the guy who had the steam bake place.
Oh
and
my
then,
God, the steam bake one destroyed me.
Yeah. And then the guy who was an advocate for homeless people. Those 3 were they're the best Queer Eye that I've seen, and they made me very emotional.
They are a perfect combination. Like, it's like one of those things where it's like, if one of them was to walk away from the show and they'd have to bring in a new person, I feel like we would all reject. We'd be like, no, how
they
dare
are
you?
bound to do the show. Like,
it's going to happen, and it's going to suck. Yeah.
So here's one thing that really frustrates me about them. It also frustrates me about Rhett and Link and Good Mythical Morning. They're so close to understanding animal welfare issues. They fucking get it, but then they forget. It's so frustrating to hear people talk about animal welfare and then ignore it. I don't want to dwell on it. What I did want to mention is a movie that I watched today. I watched The Stylist from 2021 because of Kyle picking that as his one of his favorites from last year. And I understand 100% why you loved it. It's a very pretty movie. It also made me feel very uncomfortable. The pacing and the interactions, every interaction is just very uncomfortable, and I understand that's the point. They telegraphed the ending in a really great way. I thought that it was a beautiful tableau at the end. I did not enjoy my watch, and I will never watch it again. I felt like Maniac did it better. I mean, I felt like I've seen the movie before. And it's not that it's not good. I just think it worked better as a short. That's just my personal opinion, but I think that it is a really well-made film.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you watched it. That's awesome. Like, I hear you 100% on it too. I get that.
But also, like, when you watch it, it makes total sense why a filmmaker would be enamored with it, because it's a really well-made film.
The first time I saw Maniac, it was like a shitty VHS, and I was like, I don't get it.
I'm sorry,
and
I meant
like
Maniac 2012. I was talking the Elijah Wood Maniac.
I actually turned that off.
I'm surprised. I thought that you would have liked it because it's very much a filmmaker's movie in my opinion.
think I would like. I got to revisit it. I turned it off when I was in college, and I really don't think that I was giving it the time and the breath that it. I think I got to the first kill, and I was like, I don't know why or what or how, but I do want to revisit it.
That also just shocks me because I don't see you. I feel like you and I are very kindred spirits in a weird sense of like.
Off.
I was gonna say, if I hit play on something, I will see it to its.
It's very rare, but you know what? I was with a friend who
that could do it.
And I think that's a factor. I think we're people pleasers too.
Yeah, if you're watching with someone who's very vocally not into a movie, you're just like, all right, I guess.
Yeah, I was in my common room with a friend of mine, and I think both of us. He's a person who turn stuff off, and I am not. But I'm like, okay. I mean, we're in the same place, in the same vicinity, and I'd like to return to it, especially because the short that I just did has POV stuff that is that I had a lot of fun directing and doing, and I would like to see a more full with money thing of that. So
that was Meet the Applegates, from some time between 1988 and 1991 when it was finally released. We'll be back with even more horror goodness on Horror Movie Night.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network. You're listening to the Geekscape Network.